Full disclaimer before we begin, I'm not a film student or anything. I just happen to enjoy movies and I study the industry in the same way that I follow games or books. But what remains fact is fact, so proceed with caution. The movie industry is fucked. Talk to someone about the lows of the game or the television industry, and they will say their respective areas are more screwed up in some fashion. But, as NoFX may put it, the movie industry is 100 times fuckeder. Let me break this down into the biggest problem areas from smallest to largest. Let's start with book and IP adaptations. This is at the bottom of the list for two reasons. For one, not all book adaptations are bad. Some are actually quite the opposite. Just look at some of the Stephen King adaptations. Shawshank Redemption remains one of my favorite films ever made, and The Shining has had as much influence on the horror genre as Friday the 13th or Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Another reason is that the adapting of books has been along since the invention of film, and it's really not stopping anytime soon. But the biggest underlying problem with book adaptations comes in the form of producers and directors in charge of making these movies just not respecting the original source material at all. Or even worse, they're half-assing the material for a quick cash-in. Let's compare two books, shall we? We have The Shining and The Lightning Thief. One had major changes and went on to become one of the most popular and influential horror movies of all time. And the other is The Lightning Thief. Yes, the first Percy Jackson movie sucks, but why? Obviously, audiences don't care too much about their source material being changed a little bit. Obviously, because of Shining. So why did Percy Jackson fail? And more importantly, why was it terrible? Well, that leads me to my next point. Point number 2, terrible craftsmanship. This should be the easiest thing to understand ever. Put people who can direct in a room with people who know how to act, with people who know how to write, and shit should work out in everyone's favor. But I'll be the first to admit that that's not always the case. Case in point, Eyes Wide Shut. I'm gonna mention a lot of Stanley Kubrick films this morning. Eyes Wide Shut is considered a mediocre Stanley Kubrick film, despite being his track record just full of amazing films. 2001, The Shining, other stuff that I couldn't Google. However, one fluke is one thing. Putting the guy who made 2 Harry Potter movies and Mrs. Doubtfire in charge of adapting one movie as the starting point for an entire Harry Potter replacing franchise? You've got yourself a shit show. And yeah, the same guy who directed Mrs. Doubtfire tried to be the guy to replace Harry Potter. Fucking idiot. And it's not just him. Why is it that the most talentless people continue to get work over and over again despite constant failure? Case in point, Michael fucking Bay. Michael Bay had one decent movie, and then Transformers happened, and it made a bunch of money despite being mediocre at best, and now there are people who are actually willing to pay to see his shitty movies. Fuck! Same goes for Shyamalan, who has at least had a bit more reputable films, but has fallen into the shitty death trap that is boredom, repetition, and predictability. Unless we forget the shit show that is Avatar. I will never forgive you for that, Shyamalan. Fuck. I'll make this next one quick. 3D. It's a useless technology that no one actually likes. The only time it's ever tolerable is in animated movies, and even then it doesn't really add anything. Not to mention that many scenes in 3D films are made for the purpose of jumping out at the audience. And as a result, they just end up looking like shit, regardless of being in 3D or not. It's a stupid gimmick that feels like they need to plaster it onto every movie as a useless add-on that always makes us spend more money that ends up giving us nothing but headaches. Oh, and by the way, the Dredd movie was amazing, but you didn't have to plaster Dredd 3D on it. Fuck. Alright, let's move on. Let me just say what we're all thinking. All remakes, every last one of them, is completely and totally unnecessary. Now, a lot of people are going to say, well, what about video games? Video games get remade all the time. That no one seems to have a problem with that. Let's compare this to games, shall we? Let's take HD remakes or ports of older games, such as Doom or Soul Calibur. The point of remaking a game is to bring it back for a new generation and fix whatever needed fixing, such as controls or simply making the graphics look better. Most, if not all, remakes are appreciated by their communities because it is sometimes simply impossible to play older games, such as old NES games or Genesis games, because they're just not in circulation anymore, without, emulating it, but who does that, guys? Remaking a game is an expensive and timely process, and it's usually done with the best intentions. Remaking a movie, however, is completely unnecessary, and not to mention bullshit. Why? Because you don't need to actually do over anything good. Imagine painting a masterpiece of art, something that rivals $1 million Picasso, but you instead toss it out and then decide to put your high school Photoshop project on display in a museum. That's essentially every movie remake ever. My point is, there is no point to do over a story when it's A, perfect, and B, can be repurposed just as easily as DVD or Blu-ray. Okay, take the Robocop remake, for example. Everyone wants to watch Robocop, eh? So, what do? You bring it to digital Blu-ray, or you bring it to the remastered DVD for people like me who don't have a player. There! Robocop is back! No need to remake it. Hell, bringing the DVD back will just spur interest in the IP, leading to more people buying merch, making video games, making you money. Look at that! You just made a bunch of money by selling us a movie we've already seen before. Good job. Go home. But nope. Wasn't enough, was it? Robocop was remade and it sucked and it was forgotten about. It's another bullshit remake from an industry that's desperate for ideas. Tell me this. Why are remakes not better than the original? It honestly makes no sense. The Robocop remake had a decent director behind it, had some marginal star power, and a bigger budget. But in every regard, it is a terrible film compared to everything else before it. I put the Robocop remake underneath Robocop 3. I'll let that sink in. Perhaps it's because a movie provides something more than just explosions and flashing lights. Similar to how a video game provides more than just some shiny graphics, in a game, it's easy to fix playability, but in movies, it's much, much harder to fix watchability. Does that make any sense? Parts 1 and 2. If you split the last movie of a franchise into multiple parts, fuck you. Harry Potter did it because the shitheads in charge realized too late that they didn't have a plan for their cash cow when it stops giving milk. And Twilight did it because they knew that sexually starved teenage girls would have no choice but to beg their boyfriends and parents to take them to see both parts. But now Mockingjay, which is shorter than Harry Potter, by the way, and the Avengers are all splitting their films into 2 parts. Fuck you in the neck if you think this is a legitimate business practice. All it is doubling the profits of the assholes who perpetuate this tradition. It is my own personal practice to never watch a film that's been separated into 2 parts, and I suggest you do the same. React with your mind to these shitbirds. The more you pay, the more you will encourage the shit. And what is the biggest problem with the movie industry right now? I was going to say creativity, but I think that they're coming around to that. Take a look at some movies like the Lego Movie. Yeah, they're based on existing properties, but I think it's original and it's fun. But the biggest problem is probably not creativity. It's the fuckers over at the MPAA. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because a lot of people are kind of already aware of the MPAA's shitty practices. Thanks to the documentary, this film is not yet rated. A lot of people just kind of already know. Fantastic documentary, by the way. Go watch it. Essentially, the MPAA is the ESRB of movies. They assign ratings to the films that we watch, and by assigned ratings, I mean fuck with creativity in the name of pushing conservative bullshit. The MPAA is supposed to be a sample of the population, a measurement of values. But in actuality, they're a bunch of old white guys deciding what's right and wrong for you to watch. It's their fault that so many films have become butchered and changed due to the studio wanting a certain rating. Not to mention that they unfairly discriminate against homosexual behavior, thus slapping 100% in clean, honest, pro-homosexual films with the NC-17, a death sentence in the film industry. All I'm trying to say with the MPAA is just be careful. Take any film into account and try not to take it 100% face value. They already got rid of Jack Folletti, but the damage has been done. You need to just be careful, dudes. I'm on a roll here, so let me just toss this in. When did it suddenly stop being cool to make stupid bullshit? I mentioned Robocop before. When are we going to get another Robocop? When are we going to get another movie that just devolves into stupidity and black humor? Oh, there's not enough of it anymore. Something that's just over the top and dumb for the sake of being over the top and dumb. Maybe it's because whenever we do get something over the top and dumb, we get a Michael Bay movie instead of something that's actually made with the best intentions instead of just for money. Movie industry's fucked. This has been Grungy Rants. I'm gonna go watch a bunch of movies. So you don't kill yourselves.